On this edition of In the Gun, the Mountaineers drop a tough one, an exciting one, a back and forth contest out in the desert. We'll recap all of that and a big week for WVU basketball. All that and more on this edition of ITG.
Caution, this podcast contains bad jokes, optimism, and a healthy disdain for Pat Narduzzi. Watching it may increase your actual knowledge of actual football.
ITG.
All the pieces are in place for us to have a chance to win it all.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
There's Owen Schmitt in the building.
Like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
So where's he in? He in here, Jed Drenning?
I'm not much of an athlete.
The thing that's non-negotiable is playing hard and playing tough.
And Wesley, Valen, Uhler. You are in the gun.
Because once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 307 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I am Wes Uhler, as always, with the best teammates in the business. We've got the signal caller, Jed Drenning, for this episode, the ASU recap. As the Mountaineers fall to the Sun Devils, a wild back-and-forth one, 25-23, out there in Tempe. A lot to like. Plenty to make you pull your hair out and go crazy as well, too. We'll get into all that and more on this recap edition. But before we do that, we're going to go around campus here for just about 2 minutes because, Jed, my goodness, was it a massive week for WVU basketball. Men's and women's programs, both. Hoops in the Mountain State is on the rise. Let's just put it that way. Let me lay out the timeline for everybody real quick. Thursday night, the backyard brawl. Right? The backyard basket brawl, I should say, in Morgantown. Of course, the last 2 years had gone Pitt's way. WVU men's hoops, now with our fourth different head coach in the last 4 years. A lot of unknown going into this one, but it was at home. We had some optimism, and boy, did we not even really need it because the Mountaineers just rolled, brother. 71-49 at the Coliseum, an absolute beatdown of the Pitt Panthers, and just a incredibly complete performance from start to finish. Wow, the defense was on point. Wow, they absolutely dominated in the paint. Honor Huff had himself a nice showing. Just a perfect night at the Coliseum as the Mountaineers beat up on those stinking Pitt Panthers and moved to 4-0 in the process. That was Thursday night. And then Friday night at the Greenbrier, our women said, you thought that was crazy. Hold my beer. As they were playing number 15 ranked Duke, they had 6 players ejected, couldn't even make a sub in the second half because we had nobody on the bench, and still comfortably beat the Blue Devils 57-49 in an all-time kind of time capsule game for Coach Kellogg, for the Greenbrier Five, as they shall ever be known henceforth, Jed. An incredible, gutsy, hard-edge performance by the ladies down at the Greenbrier to get a top 15 win shorthanded. And then Sunday, today, as Jed and I record this, Miles Sadler, one of the top 20, top 25 recruits in college basketball, depending on where you look, committed to the WVU men's basketball program to Ross Hodge, the highest ranked commit in the modern era that WVU men's basketball has ever received. Jed, a heck of a few days for Ross Hodge, for Mark Kellogg, for everybody involved with both of the WVU basketball programs.
And Wes, let's double back to hit the Thursday night blowout in the brawl. It was 71-49 in a game that, as strange as to say, wasn't really as close as the score might indicate. And I've been told by multiple people that's the biggest margin of victory by West Virginia in the brawl in the Coliseum.
In the Coliseum.
Think about that. How many brawls have been played in the Coliseum? So history made there. Now, fast forward to the women's game at the Greenbrier. That became just the way it unfolded. One of those where were you when moments. It really did. I'm getting chills kind of talking about it and thinking about it. And I will always remember we were convening downstairs in the hotel in Phoenix because we were about to go to dinner. We were waiting on our Ubers to arrive. and multiple people had it on their phones. And of course, some people had the TV broadcast. Tony had the radio broadcast because Andrew was calling
Listening
the
to
game.
Andrew, of
So
course.
Andrew is in the back of our Andrew. Tony's in the back of our SUV listening. We're listening. We're tracking this thing the whole way through, and you just so desperately wanted them to hold on because you recognize the pattern developing in the second half. I mean, you talk about the Normandale, my team's on the floor moment.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, Tony said something along the lines of, look, this is every sports movie you ever saw wrapped into one. And he's right. It really is. It's like when you think about the nature of how that played out, first, the crazy nature of the fight, which we were at dinner doubling back and watching it on Twitter, like, are you kidding me? That's what happened. So the nature in which all those girls were ejected, and then it's not even though you were down to your best five, you had four subs and a starter against a ranked Duke team. I mean, Hollywood would reject it because they wouldn't believe it. On that crazy setup at the Greenbrier in front of about 1,000 people, and Andrew spent several minutes waxing poetic about it on the pregame show for the football game on Saturday, just hours after, because they didn't get back to Morgantown till, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
Saturday, and then Andrew a couple hours later is on the air with us on the pregame show. But I told Tony, I said, this is one of those things you can go, how many years in your career as a broadcaster and never touch a game like this? And here Andrew is. He started his career 15 minutes ago, and he already has a game under his belt that people will be talking about for the rest of his life.
Incredible.
So, yeah, it's something. And that all leads us up to the cherry on top. Of course, a lot of people were kind of angling toward the possibility of this becoming more and more of a possibility. And the next thing you know, highest ranked kid in history, not just that, a kid from the other side of the country in Arizona. So all arrows are pointing up on the hoops front, men's, women's. And, we were in the lobby. In fact, the game was on, and we were sitting there with Ren. And he was
he was
like
beaming.
calling it. Ren was like calling the game, you know what I mean? Like the play-by-play in it. Like, all right, now more of this. He was dialed in, and he was smiling
awesome.
like the butcher's dog. And it was just, everything that we absolutely needed. I just wish that, as we'll talk about, that football game could have gone slightly differently than it did on Saturday. But yeah, outside of that, boy, you talk about some silver lining around an otherwise gray cloud of a weekend. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. That pit blowout, a win for the ages under those circumstances. Somebody has to make a movie about that. I mean, that's just right. Not just a documentary. I mean, a movie. I think it's more than a documentary. Of course, a documentary will be made about it. Somebody needs to make a movie about that. That's crazy. That's just crazy. And now, next thing you know, we're landing 5 stars on the men's team. So here we go.
You gotta love it. Gotta love it. To kind of borrow a phrase from the great Tony Caridi and put a little twist on it, it was a great weekend to be a Mountaineer hoops fan wherever you may be.
That's right.
From Arizona to Morgantown to the Greenbrier and all points in between. Gotta love it.
It's the only time in my life. Guess what I did after the game? I went and listened to Kara Lawson, the head coach at Duke. I listened to her press conference.
You're such a sicko.
First time in my life. Okay. I had to hear it. I had to hear what the losing coach in that game had to say. So anyway.
Oh man, you're a sicko, Jed. That's why we love you. It was a fantastic weekend on the hardwood. And as we mentioned, a tough one to swallow down in Tempe. We're going to get into that on the other side plenty. I think there was certainly enough to like there out in Arizona for the men's football team, but feels like you had a real opportunity to win and kind of let one get away at the same time. We'll get into all of that when we return. A big thanks to all of our friends here on ITG who make this possible. A big shout out to JR, everybody at Team Toothman. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. A big thanks to Rick Lewis and Fortis for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. And of course, the good people, my new friends at Johnston Equipment. Make sure you're checking them out, Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. You can also visit them online, Johnston with a T, JohnstonEQ.com. wview.com. And of course, to everybody at the Book Exchange, get all your WVU gear and apparel at the Book Exchange. Hey, maybe you want to pick up some WVU women's basketball gear, maybe a t-shirt or a hoodie or a hat or something like that, and hop on the Kellogg bandwagon here. You should do so at the Book Exchange, baby. One of their 2 locations downtown, or of course, Evansdale on Patterson Drive. Online at bookexchangewv.com. And whether you're in store or online, whether you're getting some basketball gear, some football gear, or anything in between, make sure you're using the discount code INTHEGUN20 for 20% off your friends here at your new favorite WVU football podcast. Jed's thoughts, observations from a tough one in Arizona when we return on the other side as the Mountaineers fall to the Sun Devils. We'll get into the good. We'll get into the bad. We'll get into some of the encouragement and some of the frustration. All of that when we return on the other side. Wes Uhler, Jed Drenning, you are in the gun.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
You're listening to Mountaineer Football Talk.
ITG. When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnson Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready.
Low-rate financing available on select Coyote models.
Johnson Equipment, farming made easy.
Get all your Mountaineer gear and WVU apparel at the Book Exchange. They're the locally owned and operated retailer with more than 90 years of selling everything you need for game day and everything else you need to show you're the ultimate WVU fan. Shop at their 2 locations at downtown Morgantown or Evansdale on Patterson Drive, or online at bookexchangewv.com.
When shopping online at bookexchangewv.com, be sure to enter code INTHEGUN20 at checkout for an awesome savings of 20%. That's right, 20%.
Back in the gun here as we roll along, and the Mountaineers go to Tempe. The Mountaineers drop a tough one. Back and forth, a little bit of a heartbreaker, 25-23 to the Arizona State Sun Devils. In one where at times the Mountaineers looked out of it. At times it looked like the Mountaineers were going to win. I mean, Jed, there is a lot to get into from this game. Like I said in the intro, there is plenty to like, and there is certainly the frustrations, the disappointments, the, man, we should have had it in a couple of these moments. And that, Jed, to me was kind of, like, I was laughing, I was texting this with you guys, but I felt like, and I'm starting to feel this now a little bit, you know, I've got 2 daughters, 4 and 2.5 years old. And so I find myself being like, oh man, that's something my parents used to say. That's something my parents used to do. Oh, I'm really transitioning to the other side of adulthood here. But I kind of felt I felt like a father, you know, who like catches their kids doing something that they shouldn't have done. But you know, you used to do it back in the day too. Like, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Like I thought I know we played well enough to win. It was just more of those weighty moments felt like they went Arizona State's way, and those kind of who's going to blink, games really tight moments. Yeah, WVU had plenty of their own. The blocked field goal comes to mind. The third in a mile, 90-yard touchdown pass to Sincere Bowers comes to mind. This defense did a lot to keep the team in the game. You go down 15-3 in the second quarter, and it feels like, oh man, could this one get a little bit away from you? And bang, here comes a huge touchdown pass to Weimer. But like overall, it just felt like more of those weighty moments, more of those key possession downs went Arizona State's way. And so, like I said, I'm not mad. I'm disappointed they weren't able to pull that one out. But overall, the last 4 games have certainly been much better than the previous 4. You went on the road against, I know their starting quarterback and their star wide receiver were out, but don't talk to me about injuries. We've dealt with plenty of those and key absences of our own. You went on the road. You hung in with the defending Big 12 champs who have been battle tested this year, who are, kind of in year 3 and really bought into their culture and everything Dillingham is doing there. I thought this was a good learning experience for this group. A tough pill to swallow, though. And as Rich mentioned in his postgame, you kind of look back and just 6, 7, 8 plays of, oh man, if we would have just had a couple of those, we would have probably come out on the winning end.
It was frustrating in the sense that the flow of the game, we had so many chances early on that we failed to seize on. And I mean, even when I had my mic and the official's face out there in the huddle for the coin toss, I was smiling because we actually won the toss. Wes, we never win the toss.
That hasn't happened this year.
We never win the toss, right? And so I'm thinking, wow, we get to defer. Now, last week, Colorado had the ball first because they actually chose to take the ball first. We didn't do it the old school way of deferring. This week, we won the toss and deferred, and I thought, boy, that's a good sign to start with. Now, can we put them on the field and take care of business? This is an offense an Arizona State offense that we knew one of the challenges was they like to play keep away. They led the Big 12 in time of possession. They ranked 6th or 7th in the country in time of possession. They're greedy with the football. Well, what's the perfect anecdote for a team that plays that style of football? 3 and outs. 3 and outs are worth their weight in gold bullion against those types of offenses. What ends up happening? The first snap of the game, you almost felt something was going our way when Raleek Brown, they're in the pistol, and Raleek Brown went the wrong way on a read play, and Jeff Sims is out sticking out the ball to mesh it with thin air and realizes we got a busted play. I got to keep it. So a TFL to start the game. Right. And then they try and run Raleek Brown on second down. Another stop. We 3 and out them. We force a punt. And I'm like, wow, you start the game and set the tone with a 3 and out against a time of possession team. Huge. Now, how are you going to answer offensively? Well, what we did offensively, we strung together a nice drive. Had some nice pickups, some nice sequences on that for 57 yards, a double-digit play drive, 11 plays. Looked smooth offensively. But even on the first drive, you didn't like the fact that we stalled out in the red zone, because one of the things that I felt going into this, and we talked about it on the preview and we talked about it with Phil Steele, I had to search high and low to find a legitimate advantage in this matchup for West Virginia. And the matchup that I liked was in the red zone, our offense and their defense. Our offense has done very well this year at scoring touchdowns in the red zone and not settling for field goals or getting turned away. 3rd best in the Big 12, in fact. So I thought, okay, if we can continue to do what we've done all year, that's a good sign against an Arizona State defense who hasn't been so good at stopping you from scoring a touchdown, 10th in the Big 12. So I thought, okay, we got it. Yes, it's an advantage, but it's an only advantage if you keep it up, right? Well, that's the part. Once that first drive into the end zone, I thought, okay, here we go. Now this has to kick in. They tend to give up plays. We tend to make these plays. And when they stopped us and we settled for the field goal, I was already thinking, don't like the karma, 0 for 1 in the red zone with touchdowns. Don't like it one bit. Well, next thing you know, we kick it deep. Defense, tall to the task again against this offense that's explosive. 3 and out. 3 plays, 8 yards. Another punt. We get the ball back. We put together a 13-play drive. 57 yards. We penetrate again. Except now we know what happens. These short yardage failures that would haunt us all day crept up, And the next thing you know, we're held short, a 4th and goal situation, which we go play action, try and catch the tight end, leak into the flat. Doesn't work. So now we're sitting there. We're up 3-0, and we've been in the red zone twice. So when the first quarter ended, Wes, the first quarter ended with us up 3-0. We had the ball for over 10 minutes in time possession. We were dominating them in snaps. This is a team that led power conference football with 78 offensive snaps a game, Arizona State. At the end of the first quarter, I don't know if they had 10. We were dominating.
I think they had 6. I think that was it, right?
And it was some single-digit number, if I'm not mistaken. And so you just the karma of it felt so, oh boy.
Yeah.
These are the type of things against good teams you cannot do. You cannot leave these types of opportunities on the table against good teams. You don't give good teams in baseball extra outs in an inning. Same thing in football. You don't miss opportunities against teams like Arizona State on the road in an environment that was great. It was a great home field advantage for them. Capacity crowd, great weather. Everything about it was what Arizona State would have hoped for their first early kickoff since 2004, their first 11 a.m. kickoff in 20 plus years. So, we in other words, we opened with those salvos to really seize momentum in that first quarter, but you kept waiting. Okay, this can only go so long. You didn't grab your opportunity and put points on the board with it. And the next thing you know, sure enough, a 94-yard touchdown drive. Yep. And nothing's more deflating than, watching a team drive 90 plus yards in your defense, 10 plays, and they take the lead, as you talked about. Next thing you know, they're trying to seize control. They even had that zany situation on the 2-point conversion. So they're up 15-3. And now you're kind of like, oh, okay, it's bleak once again. Well, somebody steps up and makes a play. A couple guys stepped up and made a play. Scotty Fox, and we'll talk about that here in the film study later on. But Scotty Fox, 75 yards to Jeff Weimer. Boy, did we need that then. Oh, did we need that then. Boom, it's 15-10. So go back and forth a little bit. They seized control again. We had some opportunities, but didn't make much of them. So at the intermission, we go in and it's 22-10. We're down by double digits in this tough environment. And you're kind of wondering, all right, how are we going to respond in the second half? And at that point, Wes, you sat home, you studied the game, you watched the game. What were you feeling in terms of our chances when it was 22-10 with those missed opportunities? Did you think, hey, that's a bridge too far and we can't overcome it? Well, we're going to create some more opportunities in the second half because of the way we played in flashes and spurts in the first half.
Yeah, at that moment, I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't think that we would claw back in it to take a lead, but I didn't think it was over either. I mean, our defense had played pretty well. Despite those 22 first half points, I thought the defense had played pretty well. But then you have another one of those kind of early in the third quarter out of the second half, a chance to make it a 1-score game. You're stopped on 4th and goal. That unfortunately kind of became a theme of this one. And at that moment, I kind of thought, all right, this is the game in the nutshell. Just these opportunities down in the red zone, you're not able to capitalize. You can't do that against this good team. But I tell you what, they hung – and Jed, we've talked about this before. Like, when you're an underdog team, all you want to do is hang around, right? You want to look up at halftime and you're still in it. You want to look up, midway through the third quarter. You want to look up at the start of the fourth quarter. And, when we blocked that field goal at the start of the fourth quarter is when it was really like, okay, we're still down 2 scores, but you know what? All you got to do is get one here, and then Arizona State starts gripping it a little tightly. But you're right. Like, that's another thing that I had in my notes was at the end of the first quarter, I wrote, still somehow it's only 3-0. You are dominating at this point, but you are all Swedish and no finish. That's a joke that I have made to you and Owen. I used to have a hockey coach who, when I was growing up, like, we'd get to the end of the first period and we'd be 0-0, but we should be in the lead. And our coach would tell us, you guys are all Swedish, no finish. Can somebody hit the back of the net here, please? But you're right. I mean, it felt like you dominated those first 15 minutes and only had a 3-0 lead to show for it. Then it kind of felt like in the fourth quarter you were grabbing the game back, but you were down by 12 points. Okay, Curtis Jones punches one in. Now it's a 1-possession game. Oh, we got this 3rd and forever. We're going to have to punt from deep in our own zone. Here comes Bowers, 90 yards to the house. Again, there's I think plenty there to be encouraged by, but you come back to those short yardage failures, which was another theme in a one-score. Our last loss, a one-score loss to TCU at home, where they had so many opportunities in the first half to extend drives on fourth down and weren't able to do it. Yeah, but you're right. Everything in hindsight becomes clearer, and you really kind of ruin those missed opportunities in the first quarter because instead of being down 22-10 at halftime, maybe it's 22-17, maybe it's 22-20, and it ends up being a completely different second half. But unfortunately, those are part of this growing process. Like I said, I'm still way more encouraged now than I was 4 weeks ago. But there's obviously still plenty there to improve upon and continue to work at.
Yeah, you hit on some of it there, Wes. When you start the second half, again, you're getting the football. You're down 22-10. And what do? You start the second half much like you started the first half. You come out and you're productive on the offensive side. You string together a nice 74-yard drive on 13 plays. You penetrate. You make a scoring threat. But now, once again, because of short yardage scenarios, when they bow up and we just don't make it happen, we fail in short yardage. So instead of cutting into that lead, it remains 22-10, but it was even worse than remaining 22-10.
Just real quick, those 3 drives, so the 2 at the start of the game and then the 1 in the third quarter, you had nearly 200 yards of offense on those 3 drives alone. And you got 3 points. Nearly 200 yards of offense on 3 drives, and you got 3 points. Like, you're gonna struggle to beat the bad teams doing that, let alone a good team on the road.
And again, we talked about our strength. We have had success getting in the end zone. We haven't had done a lot of things consistently well on the offensive side of the football, but at least through the first 10 games, that's something that we had done. When we do get to the red zone, more than most teams in this league, we find a way to punch it in. But against Arizona State, 4 trips to the red zone, 1 touchdown. That's 25%. That's not going to cut it. Meanwhile, defensively, Arizona State was the worst team in the league in the red zone, scoring touchdowns. They were 16th out of 16. We were second best, Wes. All you got to do is continue to do what you have done well through 10 games and expose them as something they don't do well. Instead, 2 trips per Arizona State, 2 touchdowns. So after that drive, you walked away thinking it almost feels worse than staying 22-10 and not cutting into the lead. Now it feels karmic. It starts to reach a point where you're like, all right, we're no longer trying to win this game. Now we have to officially steal this game. If you can't convert in that many short yardage situations, you're not here to win it. You're here to steal it. Right. So the question becomes, can we find a way to steal it? Because stealing it still counts. So next thing you know, here comes the blocked field goal. And that did feel like Tim Agee, former Mountaineer great defensive back, Tim Agee was on the sidelines. And we were talking after that happened. I was like, Tim, I'm hoping this is the type of play. It's that spark. Sometimes you need a special teams or otherwise spark that sparks you. And the funny thing is, guess who else was on the sidelines? Because we blocked that field goal, and it was the first blocked field goal since Dante Stills against Baylor in 2020.
That's right.
And I asked
he was
Dante.
He was on the sideline.
Dante was on the sidelines. I said, Dante, because Tony mentioned it in the broadcast, I said, did you block a field goal against Baylor? He thought about it. He said, yeah. I said, you realize that was the first one since you did that? He said, really? I said, there, you're part of the broadcast. Yeah. So how about that? But Dante was on the sidelines having some fun. It was great to have him back. But yeah. And then kind of the game got crazy. It got crazy. We strung together another drive, and we did find a way to punch this one in. The Curtis Jones factor made a difference. Ended a 72-yard drive with the touchdown. The 73-yard drive with a touchdown. And we cut into the lead. So at any rate, it's 22-17. And now everything's leading up to this crazy epic moment that we're facing 3rd and 26, 3rd and 27 from our own 10. And I'll talk about this in the film study, so I don't want to belabor it here. But Wes, they were in a defense that you only see against a Hail Mary. Yeah. Arizona State was. That's the best way I could describe it. And And so what ends up happening was a dump screen becomes a 90-yard touchdown. And the next thing you know, Sincere Bowers, that's the playmaking ability that if you've watched practice, you've seen spurts of, but if you haven't, you've only heard about it. That's the playmaking ability and speed that you've heard about. And it took every bit of what he had to get down there. But he was sucking that oxygen on the sidelines for 10 minutes after that. I mean,
I
he was
believe
gassed
it.
out. He had that oxygen for 10 minutes up there. So, and then we take the lead. Of course, you go for two. It didn't work. You want to go for two to extend the lead to three because you're fearful they might drive down and get the field goal. And what ends up happening? The only points the defense yielded in the entire second half. Other than this, the defense pitched the shutout. In this critical moment, Arizona State puts together a 6-minute and 31-second drive. Some critical penalties on this drive, some mental mistakes on this drive that set it up. But despite all that, this was 8 plays, 40 yards. Wes, we were out of timeouts because of some substitution errors and just some other shortcomings in the second half. When they got the ball, we were out of timeouts, and that was one of my biggest fears. Pooh, if they string together some first downs, they all of a sudden could choke us out, right? Yeah. So what was critical was that last third down stop to lead to the field goal try. If they converted that, now they're just taking it down and kicking the field goal on the final play of the game, and we're done because we had no timeouts to stop them. So the defense swelled up, to their credit, and at least made that critical third down stop to give us a puncher's chance. Now they had to kick the field goal with 2:44 to go. And even though we're out of timeouts, we got more than enough time.
Plenty of time and 2-minute warning and all that. Yeah.
So, I was so scared they were going to convert that because if they converted that, run the ball 3 times, the only thing that was going to stop
it was touching the ball warning. Again. Yeah.
They're choking us down after the 2-minute warning, and that's that. But defense did give us a chance. And that drive obviously did not flow the way that we would have hoped. Didn't go very far at all, 19 yards before the interception on 4th down.
Yeah, tough penalty a few plays earlier when you had forced a third down.
That makes it difficult. Yeah. You're trying to manage the clock and overcome some things, and that made it difficult. But once again, you saw some moments from some young guys that you would like to see. You saw some moments from Cam Vaughn. Of course, Jeff Weimer made a ton of plays for us. He just continues to develop, and oh boy, would I love to have him back. But, saw some good and bad out of the O-line on the offensive side of the football. Scotty Fox, not his most flawless effort, but boy, did he have some moments. He left some things on the table, but he made some plays. He made some plays now. And you're starting to notice that his skill set, as he refines his game and masters some of the nuances of it, his skill set, the pop in his arm strength, his arm talent, they really put you in position to do some fun things that some quarterbacks, the limitations don't allow you to do. His arm, you can do a lot of things once he mentally gets there. Okay. And then on the defensive side of the football, we went in saying after what Arizona State did against Iowa State, they just decimated them with missed tackles. Iowa State had so many missed tackles against Arizona State. They could not tackle Jeff Sims. They could not tackle Relief Brown. They couldn't get him to the ground. And we knew that was incumbent. I mean, my first hit on the field with Tony, we do this keys to the game type, situation. What's it going to take? And my first comment on what's it going to take when he asked me, I said, we have to have our best game tackling this year. We have to. We have no choice. Against this offense, that's how they kill you. They don't necessarily trust him under ordinary circumstances to drop 5, plant a toe, scan the whole field, and throw it 40 times. Everything has to be contingent on them running the football. And they devised a great game plan, throwing the football attached to the run game to help Jeff Sims out. And that's why he carved us up the way he did. But we did tackle well. We tackled well, and we tackled well in space. And I didn't realize it. I watched a lot of tape on Relief Brown, obviously leading up to this game. And I knew he was shifty. And you don't accidentally lead the Big 12 with 42 missed tackles forced. That doesn't just happen on its own. But on tape, doesn't do him justice. In person, wow, is he twitchy. I mean, he's a different animal in person. He's just one of those guys that you got to see it with your own eyes to recognize how quick and twitchy he is in confined spaces. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, how do you not miss more tackles against this guy? But to the credit of the defense, we had to corral him. We had to corral Jeff Sims. Both of them had their moments and made their plays, but Jeff Sims, after rushing for a school record 228 against Iowa State, school record for quarterbacks at Arizona State, we limited him, quote unquote, to 81 yards. And it wasn't Relief Brown that beat us. So the defense did some really good things. Eddie V stepped up. There was some penetration from him in that D line. We knocked him off schedule multiple times. We won on third down, but I think we also had some penalties that just hurt us. Some ill-advised penalties that are costly. You know, whether it's roughing the passer, whether it's unnecessary roughness, whatever the case might be. Some of those penalties were just too costly, and we couldn't overcome them. But it was a situation, Wes, where you have to be somewhat proud of the team because of the nature in which they clawed back. When you're on the road in a conference game against a good team, double digits,
gave up 3 points in the second half. I mean,
yes, when you're trailing by more than double digits at halftime. And I asked Rich this in the press conference, and he was just so beside himself and ticked off at the world that he didn't like the question. What do you mean? We were competitive in the first half too. And my point was, look, irrespective of the circumstances, when you're playing a good team on the road and you're down by double digits at the half, you got a chore. And it's going to test your emotional IQ, your football IQ, the emotional maturity of your football team, how they can handle their business, how they can respond. And you got to be happy with at least how they responded. As flawed and as imperfect as it was, the effort was there. The hard edge was there. The toughness was there. We were smacking people around. We were punching. It's just too many mistakes against a good team. And it's one of those things that against a lesser team, you might have found a way to win a game like this. But against a good team in their house, you're just not. You're not going to win games like this, at least until we get far better. You know, we're not good enough to play this imperfect a brand of football and still find ways to win games like this. We're just not nearly good enough.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll reach a point where if you get this roster humming where you want it to be, your margin for error does increase and you don't have to play nearly as perfect and you can suffer some of these mistakes and still win some games.
Sure.
But you don't want to, but there's going to be times you have to. And this program, this team is just not in a place where it's good enough to do that. And you like to think that they were going to find a way to claw it out, and they so nearly did. I mean, we had half a dozen chances in the second half to win that football game. And unfortunately, we went 0 for 6, right? But
yeah, even like Jed, we talk about those goal to go situations, right? The 2 in the first quarter, the 1 in the third quarter, how maybe things are different. You just punch one of those into the end zone, let alone 2, and things are different. I mean, even the 2-point conversion at the end, right? I mean, you get a couple yards there, and you could have at least found yourself in overtime, you know. There is a small twisted part of me. Zooming in, right? Micro view here. Obviously, you want to win. You want to come back home 5-6, set up an opportunity to beat one of the better teams in the country in Texas Tech and get bowl eligible and all that stuff. That's the opportunity that you missed out on. From a bigger picture, there's almost a little bit of a sicko in me too, though, that is glad that these guys have 2 weeks to think about, man, in the first quarter, if we would have just capitalized on one of those goal-to-go opportunities. Man, in the third quarter, if we could have just capitalized on that drive to start the half. Man, if we could have just punched in that 2-point conversion. Like, it's almost sometimes having that stuff to stew on, you know, is a good thing. It's like the classic Rich, like, I'm not going to slap you on the ass because then you'll 4-letter word in my hand. You'll crap in my hand. Like,
you'll pit in my hand.
There's a small little sicko in me, as much as obviously I wish we would have gotten it done and gotten that win and in that environment on the road against that team, time zones away, and then you come back home and you set up a big final game to get to a bowl game. The other side of it too is I do think disappointment and just coming up short like that a lot of times is good for a team and a program that's in a position like ours right now. That's kind of the small silver lining for me.
The care, that's jet fuel. That really is. And I think that we're going to end up with a lot of guys that care. And when you look at some of the different dimensions of this game, like I thought Cam Vaughn did a good job. After this is a kid who was sick all week, right? It was tough for him to really go about his business because he was fighting an illness. So he wasn't 100% Cam Vaughn coming into that game, so he didn't really know what to expect. So to play the way that he played, I thought that helped us. And then, it's fair to question, look, want to kick field goals when you get down in there. You'd have points to show for it and this and that. Well, okay, you can second guess anything, and that's fair. But at the same time, I just talked about one of the few strengths that we've had this year have been in those situations. Once you get in the red zone, yes, we haven't been perfect. Yes, we come up short at times, but especially with the introduction of the new wrinkle with Curtis Jones, that's been one of the few strengths we could lean on, was finding a way by hook or by crook to use all 4 downs and get in the end zone when we're in the red zone. Wes, if we weren't using all 4 downs regularly all year, we wouldn't have been one of the top 3, touchdown offenses in the red zone of the Big 12. It took all 4 downs. So that's the reason we were rolling the dice on 4th down instead of kicking field goals, is because that's kind of what got us there in terms of a strength. But again, in retrospect, it's fair to criticize everything when it doesn't work. So it's just frustrating because the margin for error. I mean, I kind of walk away from that game thinking the talent deficit versus that Arizona State team is pretty vast when you look at their 2 deep and our 2 deep. And to think how imperfectly we played, and still almost beat them, because I can't say enough how much respect I have for Kenny Dillingham in that program. I think he's about all the right things. They have their own hard edge. They're about toughness. They're built the right ways. They get the right type of kids in there. And at their house, in front of a capacity crowd, to, again, play as flawed as we did and still almost find a way to beat them at this early stage of our development when they're, as you said, in year 3, I think there's something to be said for that. But those that stay will grow from this on the roster, because they will be fueled by the frustration of coming up short, and they'll recognize, look, the margin for error is very finite. It's very thin. And you can't afford to do these types of things and beat good teams. And ultimately, that's what we're going to try and be in the business of doing, is consistently beating good teams. That's what we're trying to build towards. We're trying to get consistently toward the point where we're beating the ranked teams like we beat Houston, but we're going on the road and beating the Arizona States. We're beating the best of the best in the Big 12. You want to build toward that. And if you want to build a program that can consistently ultimately do that, you have to rectify the mistakes, play a much cleaner brand of football with greater consistency. And we didn't do that in Tempe, and it cost us. And what else you got? I got some film stuff with some of Scotty's throws and play by Sincere.
I was just going to say, I do want to get to your film study to wrap this up, but I just wanted to back up one thing that you said. You talked about the tackling, Jed. Highest rated tackling game the Mountaineers have had by far since the opener against Robert Morris. And with all due respect against Robert Morris, I'm saying all due respect, we know that's, you better have a good tackling grade against Robert Morris, okay? Because they don't have guys all over the roster that are going to be playing on Sundays, or getting a ton of NIL money to be really good college football players. So best, like by a substantial margin, Jed, best tackling rating you've had since the Robert Morris game. So that was a huge weakness for a long time. It's moving in the right direction. Like, look, the offensive line has clearly has their limitations, but they've improved. I mean, again, it's frustrating, but when you do if you don't do the micro now, if you do the macro and you pull back 30,000 feet, I think you can still say the arrow's pointing in the right direction. But that obviously, you'd rather say that after a victory where you find a way to get it done than a kind of close, tough to swallow defeat. But that is all part of a rebuild. That is all part of this process. Jed, you want to do some film study notes as we wrap this thing up?
Quick, let's recap because we won't have a chance to do so this week. Both the picks that Schuyler and I made on Phil Steele and the fans' picks. We don't have to worry about our picks. We'll double back in a few weeks and do that. But it's the only chance we have to give the fans a shout out this week. I was thinking about that. For the Big 12 picks of the week, beat Wes. Kevin from Harmony, North Carolina, picked Kansas State. And to beat the runaway beer truck, he picked Utah. So Kevin got both those right. Good on you.
Nice, Kevin.
To beat Schuyler, picking Utah to score the most, and to beat the runaway beer truck to run for the most. Pat Narduzzi, a.k.a. Kevin Fuller, got him correct. And then to beat Wes, Kansas State scoring defense. Jim from Waverly got it correct. And also to beat Wes, picking Kansas State scoring defense. Landon from North Carolina got it correct. And I'll zip through what Schuyler and I did on Phil Steele with our prop picks. Prop pick number one, because the last time West Virginia played Arizona State, 6 players had 79 or more yards receiving. We said, well, a single player in this game has 79 or more yards receiving. I said, yes. Schuyler said, no. 3 players actually had 79 yards or more receiving, West. All 3 were Mountaineers. How about that? Yeah, so, and then we move on to number 2. Which Sun Devil will have more rush attempts, quarterback Jeff Sims or running back Relief Brown? We both said Relief Brown. We were both wrong. Sims did it again, 17 carries to Brown's 14. And then finally, unfortunately, we knew there had to be a red zone component to this game. We knew West Virginia had an advantage coming in. So we asked quite simply, will the West Virginia defense hold ASU to a red zone touchdown rate under 50%? They'd held the opposition to 48% all year, good for number 2 in the Big 12. The answer is a resounding no. Arizona State, 2 red zone trips, 2 touchdowns. So that was last week's pick, since we won't have Phil on this week. Now, I'd say to streamline this thing, Wes, let's just jump to the 2 big plays, the 75-yard touchdown. I'll walk you through that, and then a 90-yard touchdown by Sincere Bowers. 75-yard touchdown. This was the one that Scotty threw to Jeff Weimer. The ball's in the left hash, wide side right. Arizona State was going with a single high safety. They actually brought a 6-man pressure. They're not a big pressure team, as we talked about in the preview. A lot of 4-man pressures. Just they go with the 4 down and chop the front up. This was a case in which they actually brought extra blitzers. It was a good job of the O-line picking it up. They shielded Scotty. They secured the pocket. What we did over to the wide side of the field was Barnes was in a Grayson Barnes was in a tight end wing. We sent him up the rail on a wheel route, and it was kind of underneath what Jeff Weimer was going. Weimer was wide right, almost to the boundary. He attacked vertical up the hash. Now, the free safety for Arizona State, despite the fact the ball's on the left side, you had all that space on the wide side to the right, he parked on the left hash over top the football, kind of sniffing out what was playing out there. And I also think he was looking for a run game aspect of things to the boundary. Well, he paid for that because he parked high on that left hash and gave us that much space to the wide. These are the kinds of things I mentioned earlier that you can toy with when you have a quarterback with Scotty's arm strength. You can go with these wide side of the field NFL-type throw concepts, and that's what we did. Attack the wide side of the field with one of those concepts. He laced the throw to Weimer. I mean, he peppered it to beat that safety who was sprinting across the field to try and get there. He recognized what was happening, but he had too much ground to cover. Now, if Scotty would have floated it too much, the safety might have got there and made a play. But Scotty peppered that football. It was about 16 yards in stride to Weimer upfield, but on a line from the left hash across. So it was a very strong throw, and that's what hit Weimer in space and gave him a chance to get over top. And then Weimer just took off, turned the jets on, and beat the angles, and it was a nice 75-yard touchdown. So that's how that played out. But again, in part made possible by the fact that Scotty has the pop in his arm that you can take some of these, wide side of the field concepts. You'll see him throwing outs and hitches to the wide side, making some NFL-style throws. Now let's look at the play of the game. The 90-yard touchdown to Sincere Bowers on the dump screen. It was a 3rd and 27 from our own 10. 7-13 and counting, about 7 minutes ago in the game. Down 22-17. Now, one of the things I noticed, I mentioned this to you earlier, Wes, Arizona State had 7 defenders, 13 or more yards off the ball. 13 or more yards.
It's crazy.
They had 7 defenders. So this was truly like a Hail Mary prevent defense. And that's one of the things that ended up costing them. We ran a flare screen to Bowers, two tight ends to that side. So think of that. We had a bulk advantage, even though we went with a spread formation. We had a wide slot, we had a wide out to that side, but they were tight ends by trade. They were just in that alignment. So you had Jacob Barrick in the slot, and then you have Grayson Barnes in the wide out position. And they both threw nice blocks when we dumped the screen out there. Both of them threw nice blocks to start this thing humming and spring him. What happened was they sprung him with their blocks. Then he cut back into the open field and started using the defender's momentum against them. You saw this happen multiple times. Both of Arizona State's high safeties came flying across the field, recognizing the threat, trying to stop him short of the sticks. But they had so much momentum going, they slid past him and actually busted their butts. Both those safeties did against his cutback. So he cut back inside of both of them, started weaving his way up there. Now, the last defender to dive and whiff was actually the backside corner, coming all the way from our boundary, came sprinting across on his horse. He dove at him and recognized now was a desperation situation. And he dove and he missed. And so off went Sincere. Now Sincere picks up the convoy from Cam Vaughn and Gerard Bowie, and it was clear sailing. I mean, it was one of these things, Wes, where he made that cutback. Now, he caught this on the opposite sidelines from our sidelines, okay? So he caught it in front of the ASU bench. So he made that cutback, and you're thinking, okay, we got some of these yards back. Good for a better punt. And then he makes the other guy miss, and you're like, he might actually move the sticks. Yeah. And then when he got to the sticks, you're like, house money. Oh, my gosh, he might go. I mean, we couldn't believe what we were seeing. And then when I saw Gerard and Cam come up, I'm like, this dude's going to score. I'm like, he has a convoy. And so he has to cut back and make the last guy miss as he falls in. And as I told you, I think off the air, after he scored, he spent literally 10 minutes sucking that oxygen on the sidelines. He was so winded. But that sideline absolutely erupted. But what an incredible play. First of all, when you look at the personnel and the design, might it have been different had we had two wideouts out there and not two tight ends? So credit to the offensive staff. They threw that behind those two tight ends, expecting more secure blocks, which they got. Yep. Both Barrick and Barnes threw great blocks to start the whole thing rolling. And then the rest was Sincere Bowers playing backyard football, just being the natural playmaker that he can be. And I mean, he has twitch and he has speed. We've all heard it so many times, and you got to see it showcased right there. But that was, it's one of these things that it almost feels like the Quincy screen against Miami.
Oh man.
Because as great as the play was, it's in a losing effort. So to some extent it will always be overshadowed by the outcome. Right. But it kind of felt like that, once we lost the game, and you're always going to think back to the game, remember that play, there's going to be a but after it, just like there is with Quincy's, right? Yeah. The ESPN play of the year. Yeah, but the 4th and 13 conversion, we lost the game to Miami. Yeah, but
Kellen Winslow, you jerk.
Yes,
I guess he did turn out to be an actual jerk, but that's a different.
He turned out to be a real jerk. That's correct.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah, whole different level jerk. Yeah, but so that's a great play, but I just wish it would have turned out differently, because that would have been one for the ages, one for the absolute ages. If that'd be in the Hall of Traditions on video. That play we won that game, But
hey, man,
it's so now we got 2 weeks to get ready for one of the best teams in America.
Now you got 2 weeks to get ready for a legit national title contender. Maybe it's good to have some time to stew on this one for a little bit. But yeah, man, just a lot to enjoy, but just not quite enough, and particularly against a good team on the road in a place, in an environment, in a program like that. But again, like I said, I think they're moving in the right direction. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they respond here in about 12 days or so when Texas Tech rolls to town for the season finale. Jed, you can kind of treat that Texas Tech like a bowl game. You got 2 weeks to prepare for it. You're going up against a great team. Just treat it like a bowl game. There you go.
Trust me, you're not going to want to hear me tell you all the things Texas Tech is good at when we start doing our preview, because they're good at a lot of things.
You might need 2 episodes for that one.
Yeah, it might need. But speaking of which, this week because of the bye week, we kind of have clear sailing from what we normally do. We'll reconvene and do something here toward later in the week, but we don't have a beer truck episode. We don't have a Phil Steele. And we obviously don't have a game preview, so we have a recap, but we'll double back and talk about something here in a few days and figure that part of it out. But no real urgency with that. But and then next week we'll reconvene with our regular schedule.
Sounds good to me. Sounds like a plan. Just a couple weeks left. It's crazy how quick this all happens. I mean, Thanksgiving's going to be here. Final week of the college football regular season going to be here. But we still have plenty to get to on ITG before then. And of course, as soon as the season ends, we ain't going anywhere. As there's really no off season now in modern college sports, and certainly in college football. As we put a bow on the Mountaineers loss to the Sun Devils there in Tempe. Great breakdown, Jed. Good conversation here. Enjoyed kind of rehashing it with you. Again, disappointing, but not I think the kind of, Utah and BYU and some of those types of disappointments that we had to stomach earlier in the season. All in all, on the up and up, and hopefully we can end that with another positive note here in a couple weeks against those really good Red Raiders. But that will
for those wondering, we'll have to come up with a 1965 question for the episode later this week. So how about that? Because we'll get questions. So
we'll come up with something good. Maybe something bye week, maybe something bye week related here or something we'll get to. But that will do it for this edition of ITG. So let's run through the gambit here and close this thing down. For the producer and co-host, Mr. Do-It-All, Schuyler Callihan, the barbecuing, sharp-dressed beer truck himself, Big O, the signal caller, Jed Drenning, I'm Wes Uhler. The one thing that we ask of you is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. You've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.